Right, so there's good news and there's bad news as far as the numbers go out of Alberta. Good news, 37 new cases, down back under 600 active cases, um, 46 in the hospitals. Again, we're down there as well. The bad news being three new deaths, which isn't a good thing, but law of averages again. We had a very good run for a while there as far as deaths go. We were having like one a week for the last few weeks, and we were bound to have a bad day, I guess, is the bad part. But again, 7,000 new tests yesterday, which is very good that they're testing a lot of people, and they only discovered 37 new cases. So that is good news as far as that goes. I don't want to talk too much about the whole cases thing today because there's a very big story coming out of yesterday. But again, in a nutshell, going over Canada, Ontario, the numbers were down yesterday. They had like 115, which is very good for them. Quebec, they were up a little bit, but they still only had like 100. That's really not that bad. Um, to the east, I mean, Newfoundland had one new case, which everyone's all worried about. Which again, it's one new case. Like, calm down, people. It's one new case. Um, Saskatchewan, Manitoba, I haven't heard anything. So I mean, no news is good news as far as I'm concerned. There, I'm sure if there was an outbreak, we would have heard about it. So like I say, no news is good news. BC, the numbers seem to be up a little bit, but again, there's still nothing significant. We're talking like 25 cases a day there, so it's nothing to be worried about. Again, the biggest news is like as it always has been for a while now, at least, is the numbers out of the states. I mean, there's more talk of the numbers out of the states in Canada than the numbers out of Canada, it seems. So again, they had a very high number of cases yesterday, around 60,000. But the good news is, again, the no massive spike in deaths, which is, again, the thing that we should be most worried about. Um, we've known for a while now that the increase in cases is largely due to an increase in testing, which has discovered more asymptomatic people. Nothing really has changed. The only thing that would be very concerning is if the deaths go up. If the deaths like double from where they're at right now, yeah, then they'll need to be worried. But again, that probably isn't going to happen, and I mean, it doesn't look like it's going to happen because if it did, it probably would have happened right now. I mean, like I say, there's a lot of talk of did the protests cause this or not. I don't believe the protests definitely played some degree in this, but I think it's like 20%, 25 maybe at the most. The majority of it is clearly just a straight up increase in testing, and like I say too, Floyd was killed on I think it was the 25th roughly. So again, the protests were started at the end of May. Um, even a little. I mean, the protests must have started like the 27th of May, roughly around then. So the increase in cases didn't start until like the 23rd or so. So it was 3.5 weeks, which again, the median incubation period is like 5-6 days. So if there was an increase in cases because of the protests, then they should have seen it by like the second week of June at the absolute latest, and they didn't see it until after the third week of June. So I don't think the protests had that much to do with it. They definitely did have some degree to do with it. You have the media who's clearly lying about it, and that you have one media outlet who's like, "Yep, the protests didn't cause any of the increase," and the next ones, "Yeah, yeah, they did," and clearly they did. I mean, it's impossible for them not to cause some degree of increase. Like, it's literally impossible, but it's not significant, which again, it's just more evidence that there's no need to lock down. The fact that tens of thousands of people can gather in hundreds of cities for a month straight, and there's not a massive amount of new deaths, that it's largely just young people. Like, again, we don't need to be worried. Um, Again, so the big story coming out of yesterday is um, the Wii scandal. Even the plot really thickened in the whole Wii scandal, and that block leader I don't know how you pronounce his name. Blanchett is his last name. Tells CTV News in a statement that Justin Trudeau must step aside as prime minister until the ethics commissioner investigation is completed. He told Fallon Ray TVA that Deputy PM Freeland should take his place for now. Now, I don't understand this either. I mean, for starters, we're at the point to where the Bloc, who usually votes alongside the Liberals, is supporting the removal of Justin Trudeau. No, it isn't the permanent removal. It's just until an investigation can be done. And I mean, the thing to point out too is that Freeland would run the country in the same way Justin Trudeau does. So anybody who's on the left that doesn't support this, again, it just goes to show just how corrupt and totalitarian you are, in that you support keeping in a guy who's clearly um, broken ethics laws multiple times. I mean, it's been definitively shown that he broke ethics laws multiple times. And the thing is, too, is that it's not going to affect the Liberal government in any way, shape, or form. Like, Freeland will step in. Let's just say Trudeau is removed. Freeland will step in, at least for now, and she'll run it the exact same way Justin Trudeau did. Like, she shows no signs of being any less of a um, crazy leftist than Justin Trudeau is, at least from what I've seen. So the idea that people need to be worried doesn't make any sense. And the reason why the left is so against this, at least why they would be, is that they desperately want to prevent against evidence and examples of liberal corruption, because it really makes them look bad. I mean, they're doing it already, but it makes them look even worse the more cases that show up. That is that they don't want to have to be like, yeah, I'm still going to vote liberal, even though the guy who I'm voting for, who I supported the entire time, broke ethics laws multiple times. I mean, may even have broke the law multiple times. And the fact that I still supported him that entire time, like, that makes you look pretty stupid and bad and have no moral compass as a person. So if they just deny everything and pretend like, oh, he did nothing wrong, like they're doing, then they can still pretend that they have a moral compass, which is why they do what they do. So again, this is a huge story, and I mean, Justin Trudeau absolutely should be removed, and it has nothing to do with bias or any of that kind of stuff. And it's like I said too, if Justin Trudeau is removed, it doesn't affect anything. Like, Freeland will run things the exact same way. If an election were held tomorrow, or a month from now, say, I don't think it would change anything. I don't think it would change anything. I think that the fact that Trudeau still had no trouble getting elected last time around with all the scandals and blackface, like, just blackface in and of itself. Like, if you still voted for Trudeau after blackface, like, again, you're literally telling people straight up that I do not care what this guy does, I will still vote for him because he wants to give me free stuff and because he likes virtue signaling. I mean, that's the main two reasons why people vote for the guy. And the conservatives are evil, even though they're as far to the left as that they've ever been. But nonetheless, again, but this is a huge story. Should be talked about more. The mainstream media is kind of being forced to cover it. I mean, reluctantly so. I was watching CBC yesterday and having to watch Rosemary Barton on CBC have to talk about this. It was like, clearly, like, it looked like someone was like jabbing her in the back the entire time. Like, it was hilarious to watch. I mean, at least the segment I seen. But nonetheless, again, there should be another investigation. But the problem with it is that um, it's going to change no one's mind. Like, it's going to change no one's mind. In that people on the left are very clear, and that they pretty much are straight up and open and honest about it, and that nothing can change their minds. I mean, Justin Trudeau could murder someone on camera and it wouldn't change people's minds. They would still have no problem re-electing the guy. They would still have no problem supporting the guy, because they don't care what you do. Um, as long as you're going to give them their free stuff and virtue signal, they will support you. So anyway, that's kind of what I wanted to talk about as far as this story goes. And I mean, I'm sure we'll hear more about it too, so I'm sure I'll be talking about it more. Um, this is from Elon Musk, and it's very a little encouraging to know that there is some celebrities and, very popular people out there that still have their head on straight. And he tweeted this out about a week ago, and he says, 7 things every kid needs to hear. I love you. I'm proud of you. I'm sorry. I forgive you. I'm listening. Communism has failed every time it was tried, and you got what it takes. Now, again, the important thing here is number 6, in that, I mean, Musk has been talking a lot about the fact that he clearly isn't a crazy lefty like most liberals are, or at the very least, they just keep their mouth shut and appear as a crazy lefty. And that's, yeah, I mean, communism has failed every time it's been tried. Communism has killed hundreds of millions of people throughout history, and people need to be told that, because the public schools aren't going to tell you that, the universities aren't going to tell you that, and the mainstream media isn't going to tell you that. So it's very encouraging that so many people, or at least one guy, I guess, is out there speaking the truth. And I mean, 732,000 likes, yeah, went pretty viral. So that's encouraging. So Jason Kenney's been talking about an Alberta pension plan, and I mean, it wasn't received very well, mostly because people are just stupid, and the fact that they think that if we withdraw from the Canada pension plan, that we just lose all our money. Um, and it doesn't make any sense, for the simple reason that why would you lose all your money? I mean, here's the other thing too, is that why can't we just say, okay, um, I mean, I'm not sure if you can do this, but I mean, there has to be a way to do it, in that you can say, okay, um, anybody who's contributed to the Canada Pension Plan can contribute to the Canada Pension Plan. Um, Anybody who's starting out right now contributes to the Alberta Pension Plan, and eventually we get to the point where everybody's in the Alberta Pension Plan. And or we just take all the money that Albertans put into the Canada Pension Plan and just take it for ourselves. Like, one of those two needs to be a plausible scenario. So it doesn't make any sense. And here's the other reason too, is that it would give Alberta a distinct advantage in the fact that it would benefit people, and that Alberta is a younger province, which means that staying on the Canada Pension Plan hurts the average Albertan, because younger people, it's going to take them a long time till they get their pension, and you may never get your pension. I know a lot of people like to talk about, oh, the CPP is properly funded and blah, 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 blah. The problem is that, number one, you don't know that. I mean, the government could just be telling people that and lying about it. And number two, even if that is true, if you're someone in your 20s or 30s, you're waiting 30 or 40 years till you get a chance to see your pension. How do you know that the government isn't going to blow all that money in the meantime? I mean, the government has shown that they have no problem blowing money for no apparent reason this year. I mean, look at Trudeau with the $350 billion in debt, or I mean, it's going up on a daily basis. So again, the idea that we should stay in the Canada Pension Plan makes no sense, for the simple reason too that why would you want a big, massive, centralized pension plan? Here's the other thing too, is that I don't think Quebec has their own pension plan either. Like, again, no one, were people bringing the same garbage up when Quebec created their own one? Like, no, I don't think so. The main reason why people are so worried about it is that Jason Kenney says it. So people, again, it's the same thing with Trump derangement syndrome. I mean, you read through Jason Kenney's comments on Twitter, it's literally the same thing as Trump derangement syndrome, in that if he says something, people are against it. Jason Kenney could literally have came out with the same tweet saying, "Yep, I think we should stay in the Canada pension plan," and people would be, "Oh, you're corrupt, you're greedy. If we created an Alberta pension plan, we would save money." And like the same people, like, again, it's literally, if he's for it, they are against it. And again, you have not to mention too, the other thing when it comes to pensions is that old people are greedy. Let's just be honest about it. They've paid a lot less into the system than they're going to be getting out. In other words, that makes you greedy. Again, old people consistently tend to vote for the people that give them free stuff, even though they tend to not do it. Namely Justin Trudeau. But this is the problem: is that the boomers, specifically, are getting a lot more out of this system than they put in, especially in the States, but I mean Canada as well. And the reason why that, I mean, you read through these comments, and the people that are most against it are tend to be these boomers. I mean, even though there's not very many of them on Twitter, but I mean, you read through them, and look, the people most against it are tend to be the boomers. Why? Because they paid a lot less into it than they're going to be getting out, and they want to keep those ill-gotten gains, and at the expense of the younger generations, which is why anytime I see old people talking about, oh, we need to have this policy because it'll benefit the younger generations, and I want my grandkids to be educated and all that garbage. Like, no, you really don't. You only want it when it benefits you. So again, I don't care about these old people talking about what's best for the next generations unless you're willing to give up some of your pension. Until you're willing to give up some of your pension, I don't care what you think. So anyway, that is that. And the last thing I wanted to talk about is CTV News ran a survey saying 2/3 of Canadians support closing business again if COVID cases spike. Um, and again, this person on Twitter, Christina here, says in the event COVID cases spike, which media and the government seem to be expecting, do you support closing businesses again? Again, 91% of people said no. Now, again, Twitter polls aren't necessarily accurate to the general population, but the one thing I would point out is that almost 7,200 votes. So it is definitely telling to an extent. And from what I've seen in person and online, the majority of people do not support reclosing. I mean, there's no way, and there's no way. Like again, this is just another classic example of the media talking about 80% of Canadians support assault weapons bans, and then linked to their own poll, and it shows that like 80% of people don't support the ban. So again, they're just making numbers up out of their butts and telling people what they think they want to hear. And even though they really, I mean, their audience probably wants to hear it, but the majority of Canadians don't want to hear it because the majority of Canadians know that the lockdowns were a complete and utter scam. Like, could not be more of a hoax if they literally tried. So, yeah, that's the one thing I wanted to talk about. That I mean, like I've been saying too, is that at no point should we re-lock down. It didn't make sense the first time. Hospitals were not even close to being overwhelmed. Again, they're making all this big hubbub about how one hospital in Alberta is at capacity, but again, it's one hospital. Like there's multiple very big hospitals in the Edmonton area. Not only that, we got other big cities. So again, there's no reason whatsoever to be closing down. Um, and the only reason the problem got so bad in the first place is that um, the government didn't close the borders. The government didn't close the borders. So again, that's why things got so bad in the first place is that if the government would have just closed the borders, we wouldn't have been in this mess. We could have stayed open. We wouldn't have been hit any harder because the reason we were hit so hard is that the government kept the borders open and we could have kept things open. We would have had less cases and we could have kept things open. It would have been a win-win. But no, the government had to F things up. So anyway, if you liked the video, make sure to hit that like and subscribe. Check out my PayPal and email. I got linked in the description. Again, I appreciate any donations, but at the very least, just hit that like and subscribe. And last few things, check me out on Twitter, check me out on Parlay, and check me out on BitChute. It's very important that you follow me on those other platforms, so make sure you check me out there as well. All the links are in the description.